Okay, I think this is class 7 on Masechet Sanhedrin. We are on Daf Sadi Aleph Amud Bet on the bottom of the page. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. We're continuing with the topic of Tehiyat HaMetim. I got to tell you, we live in an unusual time in history where not only are the Jewish people subject to persecution, as has happened in Israel, but there's also this very unusual, and I would even say sick, tendency among the haters to deny what happened to the Jewish people. And this is like a common thing, when the Holocaust took place, and then it's kind of like a contradiction. On the one hand, they say, "Oh yeah, Hitler was great," and then you say, he did the Holocaust. Oh, the Holocaust never happened. So what was great about Hitler? Because he hated the Jews, and so what do you want there to be a Holocaust, but you deny that it ever happened. But yes, it's like a great thing. Right, and we love Hitler for having done the Holocaust. So you see, like the whole thing is like very twisted. So here, like you have the Hamas attacks where Jews were killed. The whole thing was videotaped, and we know exactly what happened. There's never been like a barbaric attack, I think, in human history where they videotaped the whole thing. So it's like all there recorded. So on the one hand, they're like, we see these children Chazak coming home, and it breaks the heart when you think about what happened to them. And they, oh no, it's not real. It never happened. It never took place. Right? The people pulling down the posters. So why am I saying all this? Because I have to tell you, times like this, studying Torah is so important because it's one of the few sources of sanity and I would even say happiness. When you live in such a dark time, things that normally would have made you happy perhaps don't quite have the same desired effect. So like Torah is like, it's just great to have the Torah. So I feel bad for Goyim because I know there's a lot of good Goyim out there suffering. What do they do? Like what can you do? Like, right? You got to do drugs. You got to get drunk. I mean, okay, you get over it. You get a terrible hangover, and it messes your mind up. We have Torah, so we're just very blessed. So I just always appreciate whenever we study Torah. I really feel very blessed by Hashem. So Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Let me show you the place since you walked in a little after us. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, right here, and let me show Jack the place. We're going to be reading the statement of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Is that it? There you go. Very good. Okay. So Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was one of the 10 people that entered Gan Eden fully alive. He was one of those Chachamim that used to see Eliyahu Hanavi on a regular basis. So the Gemara has many stories between Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi and Eliyahu Hanavi, where he would ask questions to Eliyahu Hanavi about Torah, about different things. So Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi was a very unusual person, even by the standards of the Gemara, by the standards of the Mishnayot. He lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he says the following statement: Menayin litchiyat hametim min haTorah. Where do we have again the question that we're asking throughout this discussion is allusions for Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah. Later on today, we're going to see a direct proof for Tehiyat HaMetim. We're going to see an actual pasuk that speaks about Tehiyat HaMetim. But if there is Tehiyat HaMetim, which we believe there should be numerous allusions to this thing. So we're asking for different allusions. After we bring the different allusions, then we'll bring like the slam dunk, no question about it. Obviously, here's Tehiyat HaMetim. But first, we're still doing some of these side discussions. So, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Menayin Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah. Is there an allusion to Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah? The idea that in the future, the dead would come back to life. Shene'emar, Ashrei Yosheveh B'Techa. Fortunate are those who dwell in your house, God. Like what we're doing now, by the way. We are dwelling in the house of God at this moment. And what are we doing here? You can be in the house of God to study Torah, or you can be in the house of God to pray. Either way, those people who dwell in the house of God, Od Yahalelu Chasela. What is Od Yahalelu Chasela? Od Yahalelu Chasela, Hilelucha Lo Ne'emar. It doesn't say those people who dwell in the house of God praised God in the past tense. It doesn't say, if it said praised in past, it would say hilelucha. It doesn't say that. Ela ye halelucha. What does the yod do? In Hebrew, the yod turns the verb into future tense. So for example, I would say he is going to eat. How do I say he's going to eat? How do I say it in Hebrew? Hu yochal. Yochal means he shall eat. Or he's going to study Torah. Hu Yilmad. You see, the yod always is a future tense, or he's going to go to sleep. Hu yisham. He will go to sleep. So Yahalelucha, Yehalelucha, the yod says not they praised God, but they shall praise God. Meaning, we don't know who's going to go for Tichat HaMetim, and we do know. So among the people that will come up into Tichat HaMetim are people who enter the house of God, enter the Bet HaKnesset and study Torah and pray to Hashem. These people who are found in the Knis, these are the people who in the future will praise God. How will they praise God in the future? When they come back into Tichat HaMetim. Mikan Tichat HaMetim in the Torah. So that's one of the allusions to Tichat HaMetim in the Torah. And now, as long as we brought the statement of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi regarding Tichat HaMetim, we're going to bring another statement of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi related to a similar topic. He says as follows: Ve'amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Kol ha'omer shira ba'olam hazeh. Anybody who sings to God in this world. Now, what does it mean to sing to God? What is the big deal? So, it's very easy to be bitter. It's very easy to be miserable. And a part of misery has to do with your internal state. Meaning, oftentimes, miserable people are people who are internally miserable, and therefore they project their misery onto the outside world. I don't know if you remember your grandparents. I remember my grandparents. They were from the past generation. So I had my mom's grandfather. He lived in Haifa. Now he was really a very happy man, and the house was beautiful. It was a poor neighborhood. It's really funny. It was a poor neighborhood. They had like a 2-bedroom house, and I think about the house sometimes, and it's like it was just a nothing. It was like a nothing house. It was like there was no air conditioning. The winters were cold. I remember the winters. It was just very, very old. One of these old buildings. It was in Haifa on the bottom, in the very poor neighborhood. Today it's all Arab and Russian. So. And I remember, when you would enter the house, you always felt happiness. You always felt like it was the nicest place in the world. There was always a feeling of joy. And he was Shalom Aleichem. He was a very, very happy man. We once wanted to chip in. All the grandchildren wanted to chip in and buy him an air conditioner because it was summertime. We were hot, and he was like, "What do I need an air conditioner for?" Well, we said it's like in the 90s, and relative humidity of 100%, right? He didn't want to. He said, "Listen," he told us, "You know what? If you have money for an air conditioner, do me a favor. But give it to tzedakah. There's people who people are hungry. Give it to tzedakah." And he wasn't being pious. He really felt very happy. He was always great. He had the fan. The fan would be running. So people who are miserable, and it doesn't matter what's going around them, they'll be miserable. Misery is a state of mind. And there's people who are happy, and people are happy and will always be thanking God. So what I bring my grandfather, he was always studying Torah and always thanking God, and he sincerely felt happy in his life, and sincerely would thank God because he thought his life was the best, which probably was, right? So the idea of praising God, of singing to God, means as follows. It means you can look at your situation and you can block off all the beautiful things in the world and instead be stuck within yourself and within your misery and always find some other reason why today you're upset and this is no good and that's no good and then you go crazy. That's very easy. A lot of people are like that. But then there's people, the Tzaddikim, they feel connected to God, and no matter what happens, they feel good. They're happy people. They feel content. They feel a sense of God is with me, right? If God is with me, then I want nothing, right? Right? I have everything I need. Adonai ro'i, says David HaMelech. God is my shepherd, lo achsar. So what can I possibly be missing? If God is, so sometimes there's painful experiences in life, even the painful experiences. So you have the sheep. And the sheep is going to a dangerous place. What does the shepherd do? He takes the stick, he kind of hits it from the side. He hits it not because he hates the sheep, but the sheep is about to go to a dangerous place and he doesn't want the sheep to get hurt. So David HaMelech says, God is our shepherd. Gam ki elech veges al mavet. Sometimes I feel like scared, I feel some sort of fear, but I'm not afraid because shiftecha u'mishantecha, when I feel I just felt a painful experience. I know it's from God. So even the painful experiences, we say it's from God. We accept it with happiness. So the proper Jewish attitude is to accept the Yisurim with a sense of happiness. We need to share some of the books. So Ike, why don't you sit next to Mr. Why don't you, the two of you, Sally, Mr. Babi, the two of you will share a book. And Ike, why don't you sit next to Shlomo? Or next to Mr. Aziza? Yes. By the way, was it your uncle, Moshe Azizu alav shalom?
Yeah.
So he was a very, very close friend of my grandfather, and they lived like a 10-minute walk away from each other. I don't know, did you ever see his house?
In Haifa.
In Haifa.
That was a great uncle.
Oh, your great uncle. Did you ever see his house? No. Oh my gosh, it was wow. What an area. It was like from the pre-Ottoman Turks. I don't know. It was crazy. You wouldn't believe what the neighborhood looks like. Old dilapidated building, but they were very happy. They were very happy people. They were very, very happy, and they felt tremendous content. So the idea of Kol ha'omer shila ba'olam hazeh, if you can muster the strength and say thank you to God, sing to God in this world, right? Right, little like David HaMelech, right? David HaMelech would always sing unto God, and even in times of suffering, so he would be suffering, and he would accept the suffering, but he would sing to God even then. He would say, God, Marabu Sarai, how many sarot I have, and he would express his sorrow to God. So even that connection where you always have the ability to sing unto God, whether to discuss, like right now, for example, we're going through a terrible point in human history. We should feel the connection to God and sing unto God and pray unto God, right? Or for happy occasions, right? Hallelujah, praise unto God for the good things. So if you do that, if you have that connection and you have the ability to sing to God in this world,
Why use the word sing and not pray?
Pray, because it's a difference. Pray, when you stand up to pray, the word tefillah, the verb of the word lihitpalel is pen lamid lamid. Who knows what pen lamid lamid is in Hebrew? Palal. Palal means you're standing in judgment. So you're standing before God and you're having a discussion with God, and it's a serious, heavy discussion. You're saying, God, please, I need help. I know somebody's sick. Please help with the person. And God is looking at you and judging you, and He's going to, maybe accept the request, maybe not accept the request. So it's like you're standing before the magistrate of the city. In this case, the king of the world, not just the magistrate of the city, but that's our idea. And you're making your request. Singing is just an expression of emotion before God. It's less of that heavy choved rosh, and it's more just an enjoyable, you see something beautiful in the world and you become inspired and you have a need to just thank God for this beautiful experience. So it's a little different than prayer, right? Prayer is heavier, singing is just joyful, it's art, just the beauty in the world, and you say special words, right? Sometimes some people are poetic. David HaMelech was very poetic, so he was able to say beautiful words. Sometimes I feel like I don't have the vocabulary within me to express the thoughts that I'm thinking, but that's the idea of Shira. So singing unto God. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shakol yamin baro.
Amen.
All right. Like even this, water, beautiful, delicious water. So we say thank you to God. We're always experiencing God's beauty in our lives, right? If you do that, if that's your attitude in this world, you're going to have the zechut, and in olam haba, you're going to be in a state of eternal bliss. Not like in this world, where some of the songs that David HaMelech sung were very happy songs. Some of the songs that David HaMelech sung were more mournful, were more serious. There was a state of when his son wanted to kill him, and other things like that. So he was singing to God, but it says in Olam Haba, if you always feel a sense God is with me, and you accept what God is doing, and you're happy, and you have that humble humility before God, in the world to come, you're going to be in a state of eternal bliss. You're going to say singing in the world to come. So you see, what you do in this world affects what happens in the next world. If a person is miserable in this world, what type of neshama is he going to have? It's going to be a miserable neshama. I don't know, right? Shneimar, how do we know this? Ashrei yoshevei beitecha. Fortunate are those who dwell in the house of God. Od ya'alelu chasela. They will, in the future, meaning in olam haba, be praising God eternally. So that's the reward. What you do in this world affects what you get in the next world. Continuing. Does everybody have the place? Everybody has a book? I feel bad. Are you happy? Yeah? You good? Sally, you're okay? Yeah? All right. Another beautiful allusion to Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah. The Pasuk says, Shneimar, Kol Sofayich, the voice of the tzofim. What is a tzofeh in Hebrew? Who knows Hebrew? Tzofeh, yes.
Someone who watches.
Watches, but tzofeh in Hebrew, right, as a watcher. But what does it mean more precisely? Tzofeh means somebody who can see the future. Right? So tzofeh means tzofeh la'atid. So the Nevi'im are called the tzofim. The tzofim are those who can see into the future. So the pasuk says as follows: Kol tzofayich nas ukol yachtav yiranenu. The voices of those tzofim, of those are the people who saw into the future, meaning our prophets, nas ukol. These people, they raised their voices up to give us the message of God. These people, yachtav yiranenu, together in the future, in Tehiyat HaMetim, they're going to be singing together. I'm going to explain that in a moment. Let me just finish the thought and then I will go back and explain it. Rinenu lo nema. It doesn't say yahdav rinenu. They sung together in the past tense. Again, the yod. You see the yod? What does the yod do? It turns into future tense. Yeranenu. Right? So here we see, when is this going to happen? It's going to happen in the days of Tehiyat HaMetim. I'm going to explain this in a moment. Let's just see another rabbi says the same idea. I'm sorry, the same rabbi. In the future, in the days of Tehiyat HaMetim, all the prophets are going to rise up and together they're going to be singing. Let me explain this to you. When the Nevi'im came to the Jewish people, think of Yirmiyah HaNavi. Was he loved or was he hated? He was more hated than loved. People were persecuting him. He came into the king's palace. He said, listen guys, if you don't make teshuvah, the Babylonians are going to come in and they're going to destroy Jerusalem and say, what are you talking about? Like, you're crazy. Like, and they hated him. It went on for years and he kept warning them and he says, listen, I'm telling you it's going to happen. They constantly persecuted him. It's like, when Israel did the disengagement from Gaza, there was a few, not prophets, we didn't have Nevi'im, but a few people said, this is a disaster. You're going to bring about catastrophe to the country, right? Literally, and they were hated. They were like, what is wrong with you? Like, how can you talk that? Okay. So going back to Yirmiyah HaNavi. So Yirmiyah HaNavi was for decades prophesizing in Jerusalem. They finally tried to kill him. They put him in a pit of mud, and he was saved by one of the slaves of the king who came and literally saved his life. And then Yirmiyah, he was in Jerusalem when the whole city was burning, and Nebuchadnezzar gave instructions, don't touch Yirmiyah HaNavi, because he was actually on my side. I wasn't on your side. I'm not on the side of the enemy. I was just telling the Jewish people this is going to happen. So no, I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you. So the Jews hated Yirmiyah Hazit. They hated him, and he didn't do anything wrong. He wanted to save them. He wanted to save them from themselves. And they refused to listen to him. So, okay, Yirmiyah HaNavi. Let's take Yeshaya HaNavi. Yeshaya HaNavi, he was also a Navi. He was before Yirmiyah. And his daughter, Yeshaya's daughter, married the king Chizkiah. So his daughter married Chizkiah. Chizkiah was a great tzaddik. Now what happened? The son of Chizkiah was Menashe. Menashe was one of the three people. Remember we said in the first class there's three kings that have no chalik l'olam haba. One of them is Menashe. Menashe was a ruthless king who basically had the following rule. We're going to have Canaanite Molech worship. Molech worship means that you burn children on the altar. And many Jews didn't want to do it. So he says, no problem. He killed them. So he was a ruthless person. Now his grandfather was Yeshaya HaNavi. So the Gemara says he wanted to kill Yeshaya HaNavi. So what happened? Yeshaya HaNavi was running away. He was in Jerusalem. He had to run away. He ran away into the forest, and then there was a big tree there. And somehow Yeshaya HaNavi was able to enter the tree. Sometimes they have these big trees. Imagine in Yosemite Park, or they have these huge trees. You can go in like into the trunk. So Menashe saw where he was, and he basically chopped down the tree with his grandfather in the tree. He killed him, right? So Yeshaya HaNavi, another prophet. Most of the Nevi'im over the course of Jewish history were not liked by the Jewish people because they were giving prophecies that nobody wanted to hear. Nobody wanted to hear the prophecy. They don't want to hear the prophecy of Eliyahu HaNavi. Eliyahu HaNavi is saying, listen guys, there's going to be no rain. Really, there's going to be no rain. Then there was no rain. Say, thanks to you, there's no rain. I was just trying to warn you that if you do, no, it's your fault that there's no rain. It was crazy. It was like nuts. Like you can't reason with crazy people. You can't reason with anti-Semites. By the way, anti-Semitism, just so you know, is an actual mental disease. There's no cure for it. I don't think there ever will be a cure for it, but people have anti-Semites. They're irrational beings. You can't reason. So like this guy, Eliyahu HaNavi, is coming saying, listen, stop doing the Avodah Zarah. There's going to be no rain. The Kiryat Shema says that if you do Avodah Zarah, there's going to be no rain. Stop doing Avodah Zarah. Finally, there was no rain. Who do they blame? It's because of you, Eliyahu. You were saying there's going to be no rain. You jinxed us. It's like, what? So what's happened? So all these prophets today, we love them. You say Eliyahu Hanavi, you love them. I saw Eliyahu Hanavi in a dream, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. What is zechut? I saw Eliyahu Hanavi in a dream, right? Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, Amos, Hosea, all these prophets that were not particularly loved in their generation, they're all loved by the Jewish people today. So what's going to happen? They're going to come back into Chet HaMetim, and everybody's going to see these Nevi'im, and they're going to be like, I can't believe it, look at this, Yeshaya, Yirmiyah. It's going to be the exact opposite. If in their own world they were hated, in the future world they're going to be loved by all the Jewish people. They're going to come together, all the Nevi'im, they're going to rise up together to Chet HaMetim, they're going to start singing praises to Hashem, and we're going to be singing with the Nevi'im. Can you imagine that? What it's going to be like? All of us together with Yirmiyah, Yeshaya, Hosea, Amos, Yoel, Habakkuk, everybody together, we're all going to be there singing with the Nevi'im. So that's what it's saying. Kol Sofaich, in the future, these Nevi'im, they're going to raise their voice and they're going to sing unto God. Whether it's a similar...
They're going to be in Israel?
In Yerushalayim.
But Habakkuk is in Iran.
Yeah, and there's many Nevi'im. Yehezkel is in Iran.
They're all in Iran.
Yehezkel, by the way, Mordechai also, right? No, so they say there's going to be, how is the Chet HaMetim going to be? So for the Mekubalim, this is not from the Gemara, the Mekubalim say that God is going to make some tunnel, and somebody's going to bring it from wherever they're buried, and going to bring them up in Yerushalayim. How? I don't know. But I believe.
Maybe those tunnels they're making now.
Maybe they'll use the tunnels for that. Oh, I like that. they'll make it into a good use. You know, there's a Mizmor Tehillim that we say every day. We say, Ya'alezu hasinim bechavod, yeranenu an mishkevotam, right? Every day we say in the Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Shirah, 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 Hasidim. We say, Ya'alezu hasinim bechavod. He's talking about Chet HaMetim. It's saying there's going to be a day where all the Hasidim are going to come up from underground and they're going to start singing to Hashem. Similar to this, Ya'alezu hasinim bechavod, yeranenu. They're going to be singing as they come up from their place where they're a mishkav is a place where you're lying down, meaning where they were buried. So they're going to come up from where they were buried. Right? That's talking about the Chet HaMetim. Same idea of all the Nevi'im coming back and together singing, and we join the Nevi'im in the Bet HaMikdash. That would be a moment of consolation relative to what we're suffering now. Wow. All right. So let's continue. This is a slightly different subject now. Later on, we're going to go back to the Chet HaMetim, but for now, we're going to do a slightly different topic. And what we're doing now is we all want to get to Chet HaMetim. We all want to have the opportunity to be part of that world. So the Gemara is telling us if you want to be part of that world, you have to study Torah. You have to take the Talmud Torah seriously, right? And it's going to give us a few things now that tell us how important it is to study Torah, and how even if you're a rabbi and somebody wants to study, you have to teach them Torah. So we're going to study that right here. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, Kol hamonei halacha mipi talmid. Let's say, Jeff, you want to know what the law is, you want to understand something, and I'm like, why do I have to tell you? I don't know. I don't want. Like if I'm a lawyer and you want to know something, you have to pay me money. I don't want to tell you what the halacha is about this thing, right? It's haram. It's a big avon. The Talmud comes, he says, please teach me this law. I want to understand this law better. And you refuse. So you can't do that. Now, if I'm a doctor and you come to me, can you explain to me how the heart works? Do I have to tell you? No, I don't. None of your business. I'll go to medical school. I have to tell you how the heart works? Okay, if I'm an architect, I'm an engineer, do I have to tell you how the Verrazano Bridge was constructed? Do I have to tell you? Ike, you come to me, you're my son, bad example. Okay, you come to me, Isaac, you come to me, you say, listen, I want to know, how does the Verrazano Bridge work? I don't want to tell you, it's none of your business. Go to engineering school, I got a degree, you can get a degree also, not your business, right? You want to know, you want to be a lawyer? You want to know what tort law is? You want to know about tort law? Go to law school. I don't want to tell you. I don't have an obligation, right? But Torah, it's not like that. Torah, if you come to a Chacham and you ask him, I want to understand this law, he has to be willing to teach it to you. He can't ignore you, right? So Kol hamonei halacha mipi talmid. If there's a student and he says, please to explain to me how the law of Pe'ah works, explain to me the law of Leket, I want to study Gemara, I want to study Mishnayot, explain this to me. It's considered like you robbed something that belongs to him, but not just robbed something. Gezel means robbery. It's considered like you went into the heritage that he received from his father. Not just rob something. Robbing something is, I take your watch. Who do you get that watch from? You got it from the store. Okay, haram to rob, obviously, right? Haram to rob. I'm not saying I'm going to do it. But okay, but let's say, imagine you have like a necklace that you received from your grandfather. You robbed the necklace that he received from his grandfather. You're not embarrassed? You're not embarrassed? Shame on you. So this is not just a regular robbery. If a guy wants to learn some Torah and you refuse to teach him Torah, it's like you rob something that belongs to him that he inherited. How do we know this? Shene'emar, Torah sivalanu Moshe Morashat Kilat Yaakov. The Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu taught us is the inheritance of all the Jewish people. It belongs to everyone. So if I know Torah, I'm not the owner of the Torah. You come to me and say, Rabbi, please, can you explain this to me? I can't say no. I can't tell you no. I have to explain it to you. Because it's yours. It's your Torah. It's not just my Torah. From when God created the world, the pasuk says, Adonai kanani reshit darko kedem mif'alav me'az. Before God created the world, God had the Torah. And when God created the world, He looked at the Torah. And the Torah was a blueprint for the creation of the world. This is in the book of Mishleh. So Shlomo HaMelech, who was the wisest king, he says that when God created the world, before created the world, He created the blueprint for the world. The blueprint for the world is the Torah. So this Torah that God created even before the creation of the world, that Torah became the inheritance of the Jewish people. It went to the Jewish people. Now, somebody comes and he says, I want to study it. I have to teach it to him. It's his from before creation. Amar Rav Hanama Bizena, Amar Rav Shimon Chasida, Kol Amonei Halacha Mipi Talmid, Afilu Obalin Shebe'eh Imam Mikalelin Oto. He says the following: if somebody refuses to teach Torah to a student who wants to study Torah, even the embryos within the mother's womb, they become repelled by this person. And you remember what happened when Rivka was pregnant? So she had Esav and she had Yaakov. Remember that? Now, the Chachamim say that when she walked by a Bet HaKnesset, Yaakov, the Pasuk says, let me actually take a step back. The Pasuk says, the children, the twin childs, they were like fighting with each other. There was like a race going on, a competition, and it was causing a tremendous pain. So the Chachamim say, when she would pass by a Bet Knesset, like a yeshiva of Shem Va'ever, so in those days Shem Va'ever were alive, Avraham Avinu was still alive, so when she would pass by there, Yaakov Avinu wanted to get out, he wanted to jump out, and Esav was like, get me away from here. Now, when she would go to a place of Avodah Zarah, the Chachamim say, Esav would want to jump out, and Yaakov Avinu was repelled, get me away from here. So it's an allegory, of course, meaning that already when the child is inside the womb of the mother, the neshama has certain characteristics. Now, in the case of Yaakov Avinu is pure, right? It was a pure neshama. In the case of Esav, it had sitra hara. It had impurity to it. So it gravitated towards impurity, towards avodah zarah. Yaakov Avinu was tahor, so he gravitated towards the kedusha of the yeshiva of Shem Va'ever. Now, this person who refuses to teach Torah to another person, he becomes a source of tum'ah, so that if there's a child in an embryo in the mother's womb, that embryo has a neshama tehorah, right? That embryo is going to be repelled by that person. That's how severe it is, that a person knows Torah, but he refuses to teach Torah. But I have to tell you, I knew a lot of great Chachamim. I was very privileged when I grew up. My father took me to great Chachamim. They were always very kind with their Torah. I always saw this, that the really great Chachamim, if you came to them and you had a question, they had a certain kindness to them. They were always very, they were always willing to spend time teaching. I remember when I lived in Israel, the son-in-law of Harav Odeya Yosef Bigtami Chacham Alavi Zava Shalom, he was the chief dayan in Jerusalem, like the Nesi Bet Din Gadol in Jerusalem, like crazy level of dayanut, not just a regular dayan. He's like the chief of all the dayanim. And I wanted to study some laws, Bet Yosef, Even HaEzer. So it's no problem. Like I couldn't believe it. He took me into his house. We had private classes. We used to study Torah together. And I was a little young, but then I got a little older. I'm saying, what is he? Like, what was that about? Like, I'm a young guy. Like, and he's just, of course, he'll come. Like, this big rabbi. And I'm studying Torah with him. And I remember I used to come into his house. He used to what can I make you to drink? He's like, make me, what do you mean? No, I'm making tea. Come, make me the tea, mix the sugar in. I was like, well, what are you doing? Right, so the Chachamim, the real Chachamim, when it came to studying Torah, if you came to somebody and said, I want to study Torah, they would teach you Torah. It was always like that in my life. I saw real Chachamim. I used to study, when I was really young in Jerusalem, years ago, I used to study with Rav Eliyahu Atiyah. Rav Eliyahu Atiyah is a great Mekubal. He's the son of Rav Mordechai Atiyah. He was also a great Mekubal. They have a yeshiva for Mekubalim in Jerusalem. So I used to go to his house like 2-3 nights a week, study Torah. Just me and him, alone. He used to teach me Torah. And then when I was young, again, I didn't appreciate it. Now that I'm a little older, really, I'll tell my wife, can I bring somebody out? My wife, God bless her, she'll let me. But, it's hard. You don't want to have people over every night, whatever. It's you have things happening in your life. No. Anytime I wanted to study, please, tfadal. You don't have things you want to study on your own? You don't have other things you want to do? No, somebody wants to study Torah. So this is the old Chachamim. They had this beautiful, beautiful kindness and sweetness to them. They always wanted to teach Torah to people. So that was a nice thing. I experienced it. So the opposite is the Obarin Sheb'ayman, the embryos in the mother's womb. They feel the tum'ah of that person who supposedly studies Torah but doesn't want to teach other people Torah. Shneimah, the pasuk says, there's a pasuk that says, Monei bar yikevuhu le'om. This is a pasuk actually in Mishleh. Let me tell you what the pasuk really, like the peshat of the pasuk, Monei bar yikevuhu le'om, it means as follows. Hold on 1 second. The pasuk is saying as follows. Let's say there's a famine, and because there's a famine, there's not a lot of grain. Now let's say you have a lot of grain, but what do you want to do? You don't want to sell the grain. You might have to turn the page a few times until you see the printed, the Hebrew on the left side. So keep going. Eventually you see the Hebrew there you go. Right. Okay, so what does a person do? If a person is a Rasha, he has grain and it's a famine, he's going to hold on to the grain because he's hoping that the longer he holds on to it, the hungrier people are, the lower the supply, and then he can charge astronomical prices for the grain. So, but Shlomo HaMelech is saying in the book of Mishleh, Monei Abad, if you're this type of person that you're going to do this with the food that you have, you can be selling food to hungry people and you want the price to go up, Yikevuhu le'om, this person is going to be cursed by his nation. So the Chachamim here, they're saying, you know what? It's not just grain, it's not just food, it's Torah. Torah also is food. And if a person has Torah and he refuses to teach Torah, that person is going to be cursed. You see the relationship between the Peshat? So it says, V'en le'om el ha'obarin she'nemaru l'om milom yamas. V'en kabo el ha'kelala she'eman ma ikov lo kabo el, v'en bar el ha'torah she'eman ha'shekubal pen yera. So basically the idea of the derasha here is that a person, we are all hungry for Torah, we are all need Torah like we need bread. And if a person has this, he has an obligation to be kind and benevolent with the Torah that he has. Ullah bar Ishmael Omer, menakevin oto kakevara. Ullah bar Ishmael says a punishment for this person will be that the person who wanted to, who has Torah but refused to teach Torah to others, menakevin oto kakevara. One day he will suffer a horrible death where his body will be pierced like a filter, right? And when it says Yikevuhu le'om, he will be cursed by the nation. Yikevuhu also means to pierce. Doesn't just mean to curse. The word vayikov means to make a hole. So like in that pasuk, it means to make a hole in the door. So yikevuhu le'om means that person who refused to teach Torah bar minan, he could suffer a horrible death. Shalom nidah what that means and what that horrible death is. What does it mean? That the body will be pierced. Who knows what type of sickness that is or what that's referring to. Ve'amar Abaye ki oblade kasrei. It says when we mean the body will be pierced. So like when you water the plants, you have those when our grandmothers, they used to have like this little watering pot with like water coming out, like a sprinkling out of, right? So that's what, so when they used to do laundry, how did they used to do laundry? They used to have something like that to sprinkle water on the clothing, and it had many small holes in it. So he's saying this person who refuses to teach Torah will end up having horrible suffering for this, because he has a Torah and you're denying Torah to other people. On the other hand, if a person knows Torah and he teaches Torah to other people, what reward does he get for teaching Torah to other people? He's going to be getting the berachot of Yosef HaSadiq. Yosef HaSadiq was the person who distributed grain to the Egyptians. They were hungry, he gave them grain. Yosef HaSadiq was blessed by God because he's the one who was able to save the famine and turn the famine into a situation where everybody had food, because he saved the food from the years of plenty and then he was able to distribute it. So the same way Yosef gave food to everybody and he was blessed by Hashem, the person who teaches Torah to people who want Torah, this person will be blessed. The Pasuk says eventually Yosef was the ruler over all of Egypt. So a person who teaches Torah in public, he in a sense becomes a governor, because now people come to him and they want to study and they want to learn, and they realize that his words are beautiful and more people come to study with him. So there becomes a tremendous zechut for the person teaching Torah in public. By the way, my father always used to say, anytime there was something, if there was a conflict, something was coming up and he had a class, my father always said, Talmud Torah shel Rabim. You don't stop the class of the public. He was very, very adamant about that, Talmud Torah shel Rabim. And that's all that we had a few weeks with some people. There was something in Washington and there was a few other things, and I continued giving the class. I try to emulate my teachers in that regard. All right. Amar Rav Sheshat, continuing in the same vein, says, anybody who teaches Torah to people in this world, when he goes to the world to come, he's going to continue teaching Torah to people. It's going to be a zechut for him. Let me read this pasuk correctly. Give me a moment. Here it is. No, not this one. No, not this one. Where is the pasuk? Soon we're going to be getting to the part where they discuss exactly the idea of Tehiyat HaMetim. We're going to be getting there very soon. We're meaning the actual pesukim that describe Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah, not just an allusion, but an actual description of Tehiyat HaMetim. Okay, so the pasuk is Umarveh gamhu yoreh. The pasuk says a person who gives nourishment to others, his reward is that God will give him nourishment. So when you teach Torah in this world, you're giving nourishment to other people from the Torah you're teaching. So you're going to have the zechut in Olam Haba, that you're going to be able to continue doing this in Olam Haba the same way you were able to do it in Olam Hazeh. Okay. Amar Rava, menayin Tehiyat HaMetim min Torah. Rava now. So now we're going back to the same topic. Different Chachamim trying to find an allusion to Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah. He finds an allusion in Perashat Vayechi. Shene'emar Yehi Reuven ve'al Yamot. What is it? What is the beracha v'Yaakov Avinu to Reuven? I'm sorry, the beracha. My mistake. I misspoke. The beracha of Moshe Rabbeinu in Zot HaBeracha, not Yaakov and Vayechi. Moshe Rabbeinu in Zot HaBeracha. What's the beracha that he gives Reuven? Moshe Rabbeinu says, Yehi Reuven shall live, ve'al yamut. But Reuven was already dead. What do you mean, Yehi Reuven? Reuven shall continue living and she'll not die. But he died hundreds of years ago. What are you talking about, Moshe Rabbeinu? Yehi Reuven ba'olam hazeh, because one day Reuven in the days of Tehiyat HaMetim is going to come back to life. Ve'al yamut. And once you come back from Tehiyat HaMetim, you no longer die. Right? Billah hamavet lanes. We discussed that last week, that after Tehiyat HaMetim there's going to be no more death for the Jewish people. So that's what Moshe Rabbeinu meant when he says, Yehi Reuven, let Reuven live, he'll come back to life. Ve'al yamut. And that's it. He's not going to die anymore. Right? But this is it. This is what I'm about to read to you. We started at 8:30, right? Wait, what time did we start at 8:30? Yeah. Okay. What I'm about to read to you is just like, I think, one of the scariest parts of the Torah. That's my own opinion. Let me open up. Do you have the book of Daniel? We should have the book of Daniel here. I want to get it. Yeah, there's a Tanakh right here. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to open up the book of Daniel. I want to read the Pesukim because it's a series of Pesukim that are pretty, scary. Here we go. Daniel. Remember last year we were studying Daniel.
Did we get to this part when we studied Daniel?
Yeah, we didn't do this part. This is chapter 12 of Daniel. Let me read to you some of the Pesukim just to give you the context. All right, it's talking about what's going to happen in the future war. It's talking about what's going to happen with Gog and Magog. And there's a long description here of Gog and Magog and the war that will take place. And it says as follows. It says, Ve'ita ahole apadno ben yamim lehar sevi kodesh, this evil king in the war of Gog and Magog will establish himself, his base in Israel, meaning he'll take over Israel, and he'll be somewhere between the ocean, I guess the Mediterranean, and the mountain of Jerusalem. So somewhere there will be established the military base, let's call it, of Gog and Magog. Ubat kiso ben ozer lo, but eventually Gog and Magog will be destroyed. Once they come to Israel, they're going to enter Jerusalem. Once they enter Jerusalem, they're going to take over Jerusalem. Half the city will run away. People will be killed. By the way, it says that it actually says in the book of Zechariah that women will get raped. But you saw what happened in October 7th. So, like when you read that, it seems like, how does that? What are you talking about? That stuff like that doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, anyway, it says that eventually this Gog and Magog will get destroyed. What's going to happen? How will he get destroyed? Uba'etahi, in those days, Ya'amod Michael Hasar Hagadol, Michael, the great angel, the great minister, Ha'omed al Bnei Amecha, that God appointed above the Jewish people. So God appointed the angel Michael that is in charge of the Jewish people. V'hayeta etzara, and there is going to be, in that point in history, an era of tragedy, of tribulation. Asher lo nihiyeta mihiyot goy. That in the entire history of the Jewish people, there was never what's going to happen then. Meaning it's going to be worse than anything that happened in all of our history. Okay. But then God is going to save us. The nation of Israel will be saved. God is going to have a book, and everybody's going to be inscribed in the book of life. God will save the people that are inscribed in the book of life. And here now, this is a pasuk. This is a pasuk that the Gemara brings, but I wanted to bring to you the context. Because we could have just read the pasuk in the Gemara, but you wouldn't have had the full picture. I want to give you the whole picture. And now the pasuk says, "Berabim miyeshene admat afar yakisu," and then there's going to be many, many people who are sleeping underground, meaning the dead, are going to wake up. Ele lehaya olam. Some people, the Jews, the Sadiqim, they're going to wake up and they're not going to die anymore. It's going to be eternal life. That's it. Ve'ele laharafot. And then there's going to be the evil people. They're going to come back to life. Yamach Shemo Hitler, Yamach Shemam, all these evil people. Even the people that were involved in the massacre. Many of them were killed, but not good enough. Bring them back to life so they can be punished, l'dir'on olam, so they can be punished in an everlasting way, meaning the punishment of the Reshaim for what they did to the Jewish people is going to be an eternal punishment, right? It's not going to stop. So they're going to bring them back to life so we can punish them properly, right? So that's the pasuk. So now that you heard the pasuk, now let's look at the Gemara. So Ravina says, look, all of you, very nice. You all brought very nice illusions. That's great. I love it. But just no. Sorry, but no No prize. I'm going to tell you the real pasuk. Ravina says, Ravina amar mehacha. I'm going to bring you the real pasuk of Tehiyat HaMetim in the Torah. Meaning all those other pasukim, they were illusions. Fine, an illusion is still, it's not downgrading it completely. It's still worth something, but I want to bring you an explicit pasuk. In the future, right, what I just read, many multitudes and multitudes of humans will come back. Jews. The Jews will come back to eternal life. And then these people who were evil will come back for eternal damnation. Right? And if you look further on, now this is God speaking to Daniel. It gives another allusion to Tehiyat HaMetim in the same paragraph. It just goes down. I'm skipping a few pasukim, and it says as follows. Because he gives a certain calculation, there's certain numbers here that God gives Daniel. We don't understand fully what these numbers are about, but he says as follows. He says, look, Daniel wants to know when the final Geulah is going to happen. So he says like this, Yitbareru, it's going to be like when you clean something, right? You clean something, you take out the impurity from something. V'yitlabenu, and when you wash something to make it white. V'sarefu, and when you take metal, let's say you have gold or silver, and you put it in the cauldron because you want to purify it, right? Rabbim, this is what's going to happen to the Jewish people. We're going to be undergoing suffering, which is going to make us better people. This is going to be things that only the very intelligent will understand what's happening to us. And you want to know what it is? You want to know the calculation? If you do the calculation from the moment that the Avodah Zarah was put in the Bet HaMikdash, which is in the days of the Maccabees, when the Greeks took over and they put there a statue, I think, of Zeus. If you calculate Yamim 1290, nobody knows what this is, 1,290. Actually, they figured out a calculation that works, but I don't want to get into that now. Then it says, fortunate are those who will live longer. They will get to the days of 1,335, whatever that means. I'm not telling you what those numbers are. I'm just reading it, but here's the punchline. Ve'ata, now you, Daniel, it's time for you to die. Lech lakes, go, you're going to die now, and wait for the kes hageulah, wait for the moment of the redemption of the Jewish people, because you will rise up. Ve'tanuach, for now you're going to rest underground. But you will rise up, for your destiny is to be in the days of the end of days, in the days of the Mashiach, of the Tehiyat HaMetim. So for now, rest, but you one day will rise up and you will see all of this. So here we see explicitly, black on white, in the Torah, Tehiyat HaMetim. So now I'm going back to the Gemara. That's a pasuk. So that's it. Now you see, does anybody have any doubt about Tehiyat HaMetim? Anybody say, well, I don't know, maybe not, I'm not sure. It's not clear to me. Any questions about Tehiyat HaMetim before we continue? We still have 6 minutes to go. Yes, sir.
So why does the Gemara need to say Yechiru Ben V'Aliyamut? Like that Aliyamut is kind of seems to be very...
Because Yechiru Ben means he's going to come back to life. How do you know that after you come back to life in Tehiyat HaMetim you live eternally? Maybe you die again.
We've already established that everyone's going to be living...
Right. No, but we established because we want to bring. You're right. Another rabbi brought it from another pasuk. You're right. So we're bringing this from the pasuk from a different pasuk. You see, there's many pasukim. You're right. I agree with you. Meaning, this isn't the only pasuk that establishes the fact that once you. In the days of Tehiyat HaMetim, when you come back to life, you don't die. I agree with you, but we're explaining he's explaining this pasuk al pi Tehiyat HaMetim. Right? It's an original explanation. You would think maybe it's praising the tribe of Reuven. That's a peshat. He says no. It's actually talking about Reuven. That Reuven himself will come back to life. You understand the idea? But you're right. It's expressed in different places. We have many pesukim that express the idea of Tehiyat HaMetim. What else?
Why did Reuven?
Good question. Because he was a Bechor. So Moshe Rabbeinu was giving him some credit. He's using Reuven, who's the Bechor of Yaakov Avinu, to express the idea of Techiyat HaMetim. Yechid Reuven ve'al Yamot. Another thing, Reuven made a terrible avon. He was with Bilhah, right? This week's parasha says Vayishkav et Bilhah Shivchat Aviv was a terrible avon. Hachamim say he didn't do anything like we would think, but whatever happened, he made an avon. So you would think that because of that avon, he doesn't get to Techiyat HaMetim. So comes Moshe Rabbeinu and says that avon is forgotten already. Shevet Reuven, you proved yourselves, you're tzaddikim, and you're going to be zochim to olam haba. What about Shevet Shimon? He doesn't even mention Shevet Shimon. They don't get a beracha from Moshe Rabbeinu, by the way. But Shevet Reuven needs to get the beracha because you might think that because of what Reuven did, it's over. He says, no, Reuven himself is coming back to life. So alahat kama v'chama, but the tribe of Reuven is okay. The tribe of Shimon, he couldn't stand them because of what they did in the days of Pinehas. It was Zimri ben Salu was the head of Shimon. He just said, you know what, they're not even getting a beracha from me. He doesn't mention the word Shimon, it's also beracha. He doesn't give them a beracha. But Reuven would think, I made an avon, the grandfather, what our father did. Moshe Rabbeinu says, don't worry, he's coming back. So the best beracha you can give Shevet Reuven is, your great-great-grandfather is going to come back at Techiyat HaMetim because he's a tzaddik, so don't worry, everything is good. That makes you feel good, right? Last question, any other questions? Yeah?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You said that these monsters like Hitler will come back to life.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah. Let me read to you the last pasuk in
What
Yeshaya
happens
Navi.
to them when they come back to life?
Yeah, I'll read to you. V'hayu dera'on lechol basar. Here, let me read to you the pasuk. Yeshaya. The pasuk says, "V'yasu v'ra'u b'figrei ha'anashim ha'eleh." People will go out and they're going to see the dead bodies of these people that were brought back to life, to judgment. They're going to be judged by God for what they did. We're going to judge them, right? Haposhaim bi. They did crimes unto me, said God. Ki tolatam lo tamut. Their bodies are never going to fully decompose. There's going to be living maggots in their body eternally. Meaning God is going to see to it that there's going to come a point where the body just fully is gone. And no. Tolatam lo tamut. Ve'isham lo tichben. There's going to be a fire that's going to be burning there all the time. Some sort of miracle. Ve'hayu dera'on lechol basar. It's going to be a disgrace unto humanity. We're going to remember, humanity used to do this. Yes, humanity used to do this. It's going to be disgraceful for us as human beings that we're going to see Hitler, we're going to see Yahya Sinwar, we're going to see all these Hamas terrorists, all these Palestinians.
Same body, same look, or just nobody knows?
I would say the same body. I would say the same body. I understand it, that when we come back to Techiyat HaMetim, the same body, the way we are now. Same body.
What
Yes.
age? At what age?
I would say young and strong and athletic and smart and good looking.
There was a note here I read that said
But-
someone with like a disability is going to come back with the same disability.
Interesting. That some Hachamim say that. I personally, my own personal understanding is that God is going to cure everybody. That's what I understand. Well,
This is going to be healed.
Yeah.
They're going to come back with, but then they'll be healed.
yes, exactly. That's right. That's right. Oh, so that's right what you're referring to, exactly. Because it says, Mahasti v'ani arpa. So I brought this sickness onto the person, but I'm going to, Techiyat HaMetim is going to be cured. That's going to be the miracle, that they'll come back, but then they'll be cured. Exactly, by Hashem. So Yahya Sinyan, all these Palestinians. Today you saw they're like the innocent, everybody's innocent. They're all wonderful Gaza. They're the best people in the world, right? The old lady in a wheelchair. They're all like, trying to riot, to beat her. They're sick people. I mean, we have to understand. They're sick people. There's nothing we can do with them. Yes, last question.
Will the people that keep on going up to their defense, of evil, and keep on saying, no, these people aren't evil, or our defense, will they be punished in the same way of the great evil, or will they have a separate punishment? The ones that are justifying it, so are saying the
Interesting. I like that question. That's nice. We'll leave it to God. Yeah, let's leave it to God. Meaning, I understand the question, and I agree with you. I hate these people who they support the evil.
By the way, you see it now with the ceasefire.
Yeah.
They're still out. They're still protesting.
What are you protesting about? There's a ceasefire.
What happens to these people? These people should get punished.
They should get the worst of the worst. Stop the video. We'll say Kaddish in a second. I just want to say, take a picture. I love having all it.